In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone?
Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been in a classroom and were so bored because you were in a traditional classroom setting? I know it's happened to me, and I'm going to show you how blended learning can change this old school traditional way of learning. Blended learning is a form of learning that combines both face-to-face and online instruction.
So what if we can create an environment where, 1, students can get individualized self-paced instruction, 2, teachers can provide differentiated small group instruction based upon weekly or daily data, and 3, schools can operate at a much lower cost per pupil, which will allow them to reallocate resources. This environment is blended learning.
There are 4 types of blended learning models. Now we will review those models. In the station rotation model, students rotate between groups. Each group has a different learning activity, and one of the stations will include technology.
In a station rotation model, as we've said, students are rotating between different stations. So here what we see is that some students might start with teacher-led instruction, then they move to collaborative activities and stations, basically projects with other students, and then they move once again to that time when they're actually working on the computers and online learning.
In the flipped classroom model, time spent in class is used to help remediate and provide one-on-one help to students.
The flipped classroom addresses these problems and makes learning more personal. First, the teacher makes a video that delivers the content they'd usually teach in class. Then they share it online with students who can watch it before the next lesson. This leaves the teacher free to spend class time leading activities that help students apply the knowledge. Students can rewind and re-watch a video as many times as they like and come back to class with questions for the teacher. So keeping up with the class is no longer an issue. Students can access the video at any time using mobile devices, giving them the ability to learn more independently. Instead of sitting and listening, students can spend class time applying knowledge in more practical ways. And teachers are free to spend their time working with students and giving them individual support and attention.
In the flex model, students are not constrained to time limits on learning activities.
So in this picture of a flex school, we're just showing a generic flex model because lots of flex schools are doing very different setups within their actual physical space. In this particular model, what you see is that there's a central learning space where students have their individual offices, and you can see that each student has their computer, which is where they learn online. Now, around the perimeter of this central space are where there's lots of breakout rooms. You see the breakout rooms where students can work in small groups. You see a breakout room where students can go for their science instruction and actually do their lab work. You see a social area down at the bottom, and this is where students can jump in, sort of like a cafe, and actually learn with other peers when it suits their purpose. And the big idea, right, is that students are moving flexibly through these different modalities based on what they need when they need it.
In the lab rotation model, students spend most of their time completing activities in the learning lab.
This is a generic picture of a lab rotation model. Lab rotations are taking lots of different forms, but the basic idea is similar across all of them. You can see in these three images over here on the left and top that students are in traditional classrooms with other students represented by those blue dots, with teachers in the red who are just leading them through very traditional instruction. And then students rotate out at very specific times to that bottom right-hand square, which is the learning lab, and that's where they're working online individually at computers.
There are several advantages of blended learning. Let's listen to some real-life testimonials.
Peers.
I'm able to now focus on smaller groups of kids, give them more individual attention, and help them with their individual learning styles.
Before, you're moving at the pace of the average of your 30 kids. Now you can really move at the pace of each individual student.
The teacher has the opportunity to look at data in the moment, in the minute, to know where our kids are immediately, informs instruction in the next period or the next morning.
In a regular classroom, it might take a week for you to get your test back. I can take a test twice in one class, get my feedback almost instantly, and figure out what I need to improve on.
Blended learning makes you in charge of your pathway, knowing how to navigate what you need and when you need it.
And that's true learning and knowledge. It's when you're able to apply content into real life.
Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've learned a lot about blended learning.